The latest news, national issues, the political scene, and conversations with prominent personalities. All these firsthand at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. Energy Regulatory Commission Chairperson Attorney Monalisa Dimalanta has been meted a 6-month preventive suspension by the Ombudsman effective last week. The suspension stemmed from an administrative complaint by the National Association of Electricity Consumers for Reforms, or NASECOR. But the country's major business groups have expressed their support for Attorney Dimalanta, citing her proactive leadership and many accomplishments since taking the helm of ERC in August 2022. Was there a power play at ERC? To share her side is ERC Chairperson and CEO, Attorney Monalisa Dimalanta. Good morning, Attorney Mona.
Good morning, Karen, and good morning to everyone joining us today.
Well, let's start first with the ERC. Could you give us an overview of what the Energy Regulatory Commission does and what the functions are?
Oh, gladly. The ERC, or the Energy Regulatory Commission, is a 5-person commission. So all members of the commission, the chair and the 4 commissioners, are all appointed by the president, depending on, of course, within the same administration. We have different terms. We have 7-year terms with staggered end of term, so that there's a view towards continuity. We, in a way, transcend administrations, the members of the commission. And the main function of the commission is really to be the sole regulator of the power industry in the Philippines. As you know, in 2001, there was a major reform legislation in the power industry, and it established the Energy Regulatory Commission as the sole regulator of the power industry in the Philippines.
So this is really a very important commission because you regulate the rates that
Yes.
we have to pay as consumers. And you have been leading the ERC since 2022.
That's right.
But we don't know much about you. So to shift to something lighter, more on just getting to know you as a person,
Okay.
we'll do a quick Q&A.
All right.
And you just have to answer very briefly and very quickly. Okay, so first question, are you single or married?
Single.
Wow. So no children?
2 children.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I wish we had more time to ask you
Yes,
to.
because it requires a bit of explanation, but that's all we can say now.
Okay, you look very young. What are the ages of your children?
I have a 16-year-old and an 8-year-old.
Oh, wow.
8 turning 9, yes.
Okay. Where did you go to undergrad?
Undergrad is UP College of Mass Communication.
Law school?
UP Law.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
UP all the way. What was your work before being appointed as ERC chair?
Before ERC chair, I have been in the power sector since 2001. Since EPIRA, magka-age kami ng EPIRA. That was when I started my practice in the Philippines. For the longest term, as part of a law firm. And then 4 months prior to my appointment, I was the Chief Legal and Compliance Officer of Aboitiz Power.
Okay, so lawyer all the way. And you
Yes.
worked with Aboitiz Power.
Yes.
Short description of this present government in 1 to 2 words. How would you describe this current administration?
I think maybe 2, if it were only captured in 2 words. One is catch up. Maybe this is from the perspective really of ERC, a lot of catching up to do. And second, I think diligent or diligence. That's what I'd like to believe, that there's a lot of diligence. And this one I've seen not just ERC but on different sides of the administration from other agencies that we have dealt with also.
Okay, final question. What is your hidden talent?
Then it won't be as hidden anymore. But anyway, I do like to bake. I don't know if it's a talent, but I do like baking.
Okay, so baking. I was curious to hear if it's singing or playing some instrument, but
Not really. Yes.
and do you share that your baked goods, or do you sell it?
No, no.
Okay.
I'm not that confident with it yet. So, but I do share it with friends, with people I know who will not, who will appreciate it rather than judge harshly.
Okay. What baked goods do you bake? Like, is it cakes, pastries?
No, more of pastries, more of cookies, and those things.
Okay, very interesting. So it's nice to see the lighter side of you, Attorney Mona. And now let's go to more about the questions that we have for you in terms of the ERC. So there was a 6-month preventive suspension that was issued by the Ombudsman effective last week. Can you tell us the background? How did this arise?
Okay, so as far as I know, because to date, Karen, I still don't have a copy of the complaint affidavit that was that supposedly gave rise to the preventive suspension. So all that I know of the case is what's contained in the order that was issued, and a copy of the order was served on me upon me Monday last week. So yeah, exactly 1 week today. And based on the statements in the order, it seems Nasicore, as you mentioned earlier, filed a complaint against me in relation to the rate reset of Meralco. Meralco is a distribution utility, as we know, and distribution utilities are still regulated by the Energy Regulatory Commission. The rates of the DU, of the distribution utility, are regulated. It's supposed to be set on a every 5-year not rolling, but every 5-year regulatory period, we call it. And their complaint is that there has been a delay in the setting of the what we call the 5th regulatory period, and that it was my inaction, allegedly, based on the complaint, that caused the delay in the case filed by, in the application filed by Meralco for their rate reset.
But ultimately, what is the implication of that? When they're saying that you caused the delay, is the ultimate allegation there, or the cause of the complaint, like any increase in rates or anything that's detrimental to consumers?
That's the allegation is that the inaction resulted in, or will cause, or has caused the non-resetting, meaning there's no change in the rates of Meralco to the detriment or to with adverse effect on the consumers, because the premise of Nasicore is that if there were a reset, then the rates of Meralco would have gone down, and so the result is an adverse effect on the consumers of Meralco.
And were you caught by surprise when you received the order for preventive suspension last week?
I was caught by surprise by well, not really when I received the order, because by that time it has been in the media, it has been in the news for, I think, almost 5 days. So I was caught by surprise when the news broke. I think early Thursday morning, because as I mentioned, I did not get any copy of any complaint, and to this day I don't have a copy of the complaint, and so it was a total surprise, because I wasn't aware of. I was aware of an earlier complaint filed last year by Nasicore for a totally different issue. So this one, I wasn't sure if the preventive suspension was in relation to that issue or a new issue, because there were various statements in the media that were quite conflicting. So I said I will just wait for the copy of the order. And true enough, when the copy of the order was served, it was not in relation to the old case, which was WESM, which was related to the WESM purchases of Meralco. It was in relation to a different item.
And you previously served in the National Renewable Energy Board.
Yes.
And you have been serving as ERC chair for almost 2 years now?
2 years and 1 month, because
Okay.
my term started at ERC August 8th, 2022.
And is this the first time that you received any type of complaint against you?
Yes, very much so. That's why I think it was also unnerving to a certain extent, well, to a great extent, because most of my life I've been in the private sector. So I was at NREB for 2 years. I was chair of the National Renewable Energy Board for 2 years. There was nothing of this sort, but understandably so. The NREB is a recommendatory body to the Department of Energy on renewable energy policies. So maybe it wasn't as controversial. Definitely, we did not set any rates when I was at NREB. So this one really came as a surprise, and it's a new adventure, if I may put it that way, for me.
Would you know the people behind NASICOR?
I only know of Mr. Ilagan. He has been very active in the sector. Even before I came in, there are a lot of public consultations, for example, that I participated in when I was still in the private sector, and he would also be part of the public intervenors or oppositors at the time. So he's quite known, but he's the only one I know in NASICOR.
So do you think there's anything personal against you in terms of their function? They're really, would you know if it's just really a consumer rights group?
I don't know Mr. Ilagan personally. I've met him in person. We have been in, as ERC chair, I also sat in meetings with him. He has sometimes brought other stakeholders to the office for a meeting. So that's the extent of my interaction with him. So, and in those interactions, I think they were all pleasant. They were not in any way adversarial. So I don't think, I hope I read it correctly. I don't think there's anything personal between me and Mr. Ilagan.
Yeah. And I suppose this is really what they do. Like they question policies or any actions that affect consumers. Because if I remember correctly, it was also NASICOR that filed a case questioning the passing on of rates to consumers in relation to, for example, the San Miguel, the case on
the rate adjustment.
The rate adjustments,
yes.
So,
yes, NASICOR is very active, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of in cases that involve consumers. And you know, it's good, and we encourage it also in the commission. It has been very active also in Meralco cases. Although as far as I know, NASICOR is a national group. They're not just focused on Meralco rates. They were an intervenor in that case that you mentioned on the San Miguel rate increase, but going up to, I think, the Court of Appeals, because that case went all the way to the Supreme Court. Going up to the Court of Appeals, I think they were already supportive of the rate increase at that time. At the ERC level, they opposed, but they changed positions going up.
Are you going to pursue any legal remedies to question the suspension that was meted out by the Ombudsman?
We did file a motion for reconsideration of the preventive suspension order that has been filed on last Wednesday with the Ombudsman, and hopefully we get a favorable resolution of that order of the Ombudsman.
Billionario.com reported late last week that after you, another ERC commissioner, Marco Romeo Fuentes, will also be suspended by the Ombudsman. Would you have any knowledge if this is true?
I think there was a complaint filed by a consumer group also, a different consumer group. I think 2 consumer groups with the Office of the President. That's as far as I know, because it has been reported also in the news. It was filed back in July or June, I'm not too sure. I think July. It was filed with the Office of the President. So I think different grounds, not related to the case at the time that
was filed
against me.
But with this sort of potentially, you have been suspended, but then potentially another ERC consumer. a commissioner being suspended. You were both Duterte appointees or no?
No.
Okay.
I was appointed within the administration of President Marcos already. The remainder of the commissioners, so I'm actually the newbie in the commission. We're 5 members of the commission, as I mentioned. I'm the only one that's been appointed by President Marcos Jr. All the rest are the President Duterte appointees. They were appointed prior to the current administration.
But would you have any doubts as to whether there's some sort of purging going on at the ERC if after your suspension another commissioner gets suspended?
Thank you, Karen. I've been asked that question a couple of times, and I'd still maintain that personally I don't read any politics into it, and I'd still like to hold on to the maybe belief or principle that the Energy Regulatory Commission is supposed to be an independent regulatory body. Any regulator, I think, not just the ERC, but any regulator needs to maintain that independence. And independence not just as compared to or as against business interests, but independence also as to politics, because there are a lot of there are dynamics in politics that should not affect the decision of a commissioner, of a regulator in terms of rates, because it's quite long term. Administrations come and go. It's on a either 6-year or 3-year basis if local. But the view on the rates, particularly for power, where investments are quite long term, the view has to transcend administrations.
Well, in that case, because we've spoke about business interests, and it's true, like when you look at the power rates, that usually also goes into an analysis for investors. They consider the power rates and they have to project it long term. So there have been some business groups that have spoken out supporting you when you were suspended. Who are the big business groups that support you? But before you answer that question, Chairperson Attorney Mona, we'll have to take a short break.
Okay.
At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Attorney Mona, before the break, we were asking you, who are the big business groups that are backing you up?
Okay, what I've read, what I've seen are statements of support from the Management Association of the Philippines, Makati Business Club, the PCCI, Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry, together with, and that one came as a pleasant surprise because it was a joint statement from PCCI, PhilExport, and ECOP, or Employers Confederation of the Philippines, plus the organizations that are involved in the energy sector have also spoken up. PIPA, which is the group of generators, DREAM, which is the group of renewable energy developers in the Philippines, the Retail Electricity Suppliers Association. It's the group of retail suppliers that are active in the retail market in the power sector. The market operator, or IMOP, Independent Electricity Market Operator of the Philippines, have also issued a statement, among others. I apologize if I forgot anyone, but it's good, and it's quite encouraging. I must admit, to hear and read their support.
What about companies that are involved in the power sector? Like you used to be with Aboitiz Power when you were in private law practice. Did they also express support for you?
I think because Aboitiz Power, as well as other generators, are part of organizations. So I do not know of, there are some renewable energy companies that individually or independently have provided their support. But most of these stakeholders speak through their organizations.
Okay. So Meralco, have they
No.
expressed separately?
Not that I know of. Baka naman po hindi ko lang nabasa.
Okay.
Sorry, pero not that I know of.
So while you are effectively suspended, who would be heading the ERC?
As far as I know, the ERC is still waiting for the appointment of an officer in charge. That's how things usually happen. The appointing authority is the president. So the president will also, just as the suspension order was served on me through the office of the president. So the appointment of the OIC should also happen by authority of the president. So I haven't been, of course, I left the office Monday around 11 a.m. I'm not aware if, I'm also been following up, I've been following in the news if there's an OIC appointed. As of today, as of this morning, I don't know if there's an OIC.
So you have no idea who this potential OIC could be?
I read the news, so as far as the exchanges reported in the news go, that's as far as I know. So,
Meaning no person yet?
None
No
yet.
clue?
Opo.
Would it be someone from the commission?
It
so
could
it should be. But it could be an entirely different
yes,
person
yes,
outside.
because the appointing authority has the discretion to appoint, and even the extent of the authority that can be exercised by the OIC. So it could be within the commission, it could be within the agency itself. I think it has happened in the past that it wasn't a member of the commission, but within ERC as an agency. So that's as far as I know.
Can we expect someone to have also a background in energy, or is it possible to appoint someone that would have no background in energy at all? Does the appointing authority have that discretion?
I think so, because for example, Karen, for the appointing authorities exercise of the appointment of a commissioner, for example, a full-time commissioner, while the law EPIRA prescribes that there should be a familiarity or known expertise in the sector, there have been appointees that have had no background in the power industry. So if that were the standard for commissioners, I think that would be the same standard as well for an OIC.
Under your leadership as ERC chair, there have been business groups who have supported you and have expressed their support when you were suspended, that said that during your term, you were able to make electricity affordable for low-income groups. But this seems to be contradictory to the complaint of NASICOR that you have acted to the detriment of consumer groups by allowing this delay in Meralco, in the way that they like the issue with Meralco. But what is your comment on that?
Okay, I think I'd be the first to, while I do appreciate the support and the statements of the business groups, I think I'll be the first to admit that we are still working on getting our rates affordable. I think the statement that was given was made in the context of our marginalized consumers, because we have earlier this year we have implemented in full scale the revised Lifeline Rate Program. These are for our consumers that are members of the 4Ps. They enjoy discounts up as much as paying zero amount for their power, depending on the amount of consumption, amount of power that they have consumed. So I think the statement was referring to the full implementation of the Lifeline Rate Program, which was correctly described as making it affordable for our marginalized consumers. But in general, I think there's still a lot of work we need to do to making our rates more affordable, not just for our residential consumers, but also for our businesses, so that we can promote more investments in the country, and we can generate more jobs. So that's still a work, very much a work in progress.
Well, I appreciate your honesty about this, Attorney Mona. We are one of the most expensive
Yes.
Electricity rates in the
In this
South,
part of the
yes,
world.
in Southeast
Yes.
Asia. So in terms of actual programs that can reduce power rates, what do you have in mind?
There are a lot of things that we have, maybe we can call it in medias res, in the middle of things. We are in the middle of things towards implementing all these programs. Early in, late 2022, but full scale, full steam ahead in early 2023, we implemented in the Commission what we call the fuel cost audit. Our power bills are made up of several components. If anyone, and I like teaching about this, the components of our power bill, but the largest component of our power bill is really our generation rates, what we pay our power producers. And that a large portion of what we pay our power producers for is coming from the fuel that they use to produce energy. So under our rules, the ERC is supposed to, the ERC approves the rates that are passed on by by the distribution utilities charged to them by the generators. But a lot of that component of fuel, it's supposed to be first vetted by the distribution utility before they pass it on. They need to make sure that that fuel component is correct. It's within the authority that was allowed by the Commission. When we started the fuel cost audit, December 2022 to early part of 2023, what we learned, to me, was really, I was shocked also when we learned that some of the utilities don't even check the fuel cost component that are passed on, that's on the bills that are passed on to them by their generators.
So you mean some utilities would be Meralco, and then the other electric cooperatives?
Yes,
okay.
Some utilities. But I think Meralco was, and most of our private DUs, they do check. But a lot of our electric cooperatives, they will just accept the bills and they charge the consumers without checking the fuel cost component. So we have, late last year and early this year, we started penalizing the distribution utilities, electric cooperatives that have been doing this as a practice because it's their job to check the fuel cost component. And part of our penalty is that they should stop doing this practice. They should start checking. If they don't do it, they cannot pass on the rates that they have been charging to their consumers, meaning they have to pay out of their own pocket. We know this is problematic for electric cooperatives because electric cooperatives do not operate like a company. They don't have shares. They don't keep income. They're a non-stock, non-profit organization. But we do know that discipline has to be in place. So it's a warning. We hope that our electric cooperatives become more diligent. So that's one. Second is we've really focused on our review on power supply agreements. Again, that's to check the generation side of things. We've also completed in the Commission the review and reset of the rates of NGCP. That has not been published yet, but it hopefully within the month, although admittedly with my suspension, there will be some delays in the publication. But we have completed the reset. It took us 2 years to complete the reset of NGCP. But finally, we will have a more current set of rates for NGCP, hopefully, within the year,
NGCP,
once this is resolved.
Yeah, NGCP means the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. And this is the transmission grid,
Correct.
which also charges because they're transmitting the electricity to consumers like us.
That's the service that they provide.
So right now, would you say that their rates are outdated, meaning there's a potential to reduce the rates that they're charging?
Well, there's a potential adjustment. I cannot say right now whether it's an increase or decrease. We have to publish the draft. We call it the final determination, and then once public comments are solicited, then we finalize the final determination. So, but that's getting it to this date. There has been no reset for the last 10 years for NGCP. Same with our distribution utilities. That's why I understand where Nasicore is coming from. But as I mentioned, of course, I hope you understand, I cannot talk about the case in particular, but for all the details. But this delay is not something that happened, when I assumed office. There has been no reset of DU rates for almost same period as NGCP, for almost 10 years. And that was my first, my first question actually when some documents were given to me to be signed. I assumed in August, and we started talking about something that should have been in place in July 2022.
So you're saying whatever delay there was in terms of resetting the rates of Meralco as a distribution utility, the delay didn't start under your term?
The delay has been building up, yes, and we have been trying to catch up. That's really what this commission has been trying to do.
Attorney Mona, can you help us understand why are the rates in the Philippines for electricity very expensive? You mentioned that a lot of it comes from the power producers, meaning yung mga power plants, coal,
correct,
natural gas, correct, renewable energy. But where is this coming from? Why can't we enjoy, as Filipinos, lower electricity rates?
Karen, I think the first thing we need to appreciate is that when we compare ourselves to our neighbors, we need to make sure that the comparison is fair, or the comparison is correct, that we're comparing apples to apples. The only other apple among our neighbors that we can compare ourselves to is Singapore. Why? Because Singapore is the only other country in Southeast Asia that has, or even in Asia, that has a fully privatized power sector. In fact, some will still question that, because while Singapore has a private sector, it's also a large GOCC that's operating in Singapore. So we're quite, in legal terms, sui generis in our part of the world. All our neighbors are operating either in what we call a vertically integrated industry, meaning there's one owner from the power generator to the transmission to the distribution. There's a single owner, and it's usually public sector driven. It's government that operates the entire thing. And for many of them, they also have their own system of subsidies. So not only is government operating the entire chain, the entire value chain, all the way to the consumers, government is also subsidizing part of the rates, because they are able to shoulder that, because they have oil to sell, they have coal to sell, they have natural gas to sell. So their sales, their exports of all these other resources then enable them to extend subsidies to their consumers. So it's quite challenging for us, because since 2001, our sector has been our industry has been private sector driven.
Because of the
EPIRA.
The Electric Power Industry Reform Act.
Yes.
So ever since then they privatized, and now you have companies that generate power, meaning they have to invest and put up power plants.
Yes.
And then our distribution utilities were also privatized. You have Meralco, for example, and then the grid, where the transmission is also privatized. So all of those have to make money.
Correct.
So do you think that there was an error in privatizing the energy sector?
I think the design or the intentions are noble, but there have been. This is just me. I'm not speaking as part of the commission or part of the government in this statement. But I think there are a lot of other components that we have overlooked. For example, just on the regulatory side, the law says it is hereby now established the Energy Regulatory Commission, which is based on the Energy Regulatory Board. And then there were provisions for reorganizing the ERB into the ERC. But what has really happened is that the old ERB it's practically just changing the name, and it's the same set of people, the same set of structure that was now migrated to what is now the Energy Regulatory Commission. But a major difference, I think, that was overlooked is that from just regulating one national power corporation, you are now regulating, we now currently have almost 300 power producers in the country. Imagine that. 142 distribution utilities. The 300 power producers are operating 600 power plants in the Philippines. Before, at the time of Napocor only had, of course, they had their own assets and only had 35 what we call IPPs, or independent power producers, private companies. From that small universe, you now have this gigantic galaxy or universe that you are regulating, but you are not fit for that purpose. The regulator is not fit for that purpose. That's why I have been pushing for a restructuring, a reform of the Energy Regulatory Commission, and we have made great strides in pushing for that important piece of legislation.
When
But
you say
again,
not fit, is it because of the lack of manpower or the lack of powers and functions?
both.
Both. Okay, so
Both,
that's a
because-
lot of work to do.
Yes, because the manpower is different. So the number of people have been complemented, augmented by contractuals. While in the short term, contractuals are okay, there's no security of tenure. They also have no commitment to the agency because they know they're not really employees of the agency. So they come and go. So the expertise that you try to build on the contractuals are really, in a way, to a certain extent, wasted also. Because then they move to the private sector, and it's private sector that benefits from all the training and all the expertise. But also structurally, we only have one in the ERC, what we call Regulatory Operations Service, ROS. That's the biggest part of the Energy Regulatory Commission. But within that ROS, they need to regulate the system operator, NGCP, and the 142 distribution utilities that we have. That's a lot of work for just one group. Add to that is our legal service, which is also just one set of service, which takes care of all the legal requirements.
So like you
of
said,
the
it was
commission.
supposed to be a board that then became a commission but was not designed for this
Yes.
wide galaxy
Yes.
of industry. And right now, business groups who have expressed their support when you were suspended are saying that your suspension by the Ombudsman could threaten the stability of the Philippine business sector. Why do you think that would happen? But before you answer that question, Attorney Mona, we'll have to take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. Attorney Mona, before the break, we were asking you that the business groups who have expressed their support for you have said that your preventive suspension might threaten the stability of the Philippine business landscape. Do you agree with that comment?
I think there is, I understand where they're coming from. The role of the Energy Regulatory Commission is very critical as we go, especially as we go through what we call the energy transition. We're trying to increase our renewable energy use in the system with the DOE. And I think also that in such a critical juncture, you need all your ducks in a row, so to speak, right? You need all your ducks in a row. And so far, I'd like to think the last 2 years, the DOE and the ERC have had a very good, very effective working relationship. The policymaker and the regulator are moving towards the same direction, almost in the same beat. And that's really been generating a lot of this positive interest in our power sector. So I think I understand where they're coming from when those statements are made that it could be quite disruptive. But to be fair, any negative movement in a sector that's quite critical in our economy can be disruptive. So what I'm trying to say is, if this would happen also in another agency that's also critical in the economic landscape, I think the same concern would be voiced out, and I hope these things are also considered. The second thing is that, and this I mentioned also in my motion for reconsideration, the ERC is a collegial body. So this is also, I think the threat, the concern is shared among collegial bodies, where the authority rests in the body as a whole, and not on just one person dictating the moves or the direction of the agency.
Do you think that the ERC is able to be isolated from any influence or interest from private business groups in the power sector? Because we have a lot of really big interests in power sector that usually are part of oligopolies. We have Meralco, Aboitiz Power, San Miguel. How does the ERC shield itself from being influenced by large business groups?
Yes, I think isolation is isolating the agency. It's not, and this is my view, in a way, my principle as a regulator. I think isolating the agency, would be wrong. I think the agency, a regulator, has to listen to all stakeholders, and that's how you find the point of effective regulation. What needs to be done is really a balancing of all these interests, and you cannot balance something you do not know or you do not understand. So you have to put yourself out there, understand where all these sectors are coming from, and then try to find that point of balance that will enable you to make the right step forward. So I'd rather not be isolated. I'd rather be in the thick of things, and then find what works for everyone.
Attorney Mona, we have a question from someone here in Billionaire News Studio.
Oh, okay.
So one of the production assistants was saying that they used to pay 6,000 pesos per month for their electricity use. And then for the same usage, they now are paying 11,000 per month.
Wow.
And that's almost a double
Yes.
increase, right? Do you think that there's a chance for these types of rates to go down in the near future?
Okay, well, first off, that's quite a huge jump. I think whoever that consumer is, it's worth going to the website of ERC. There is a consumer complaint form there that's online that you can fill up and click on high billings, so that we can inspect, because I think that's quite an unusual jump. There might be something technical or physical that is happening either in your meter or in your home. We need to find out if there's something that needs to be addressed real soon. In terms of the rates, we are looking towards, there are several programs, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of lowering, all aimed at lowering the rates. In the near term, I will be the first to admit again that, but maybe the 11,000 is really too much, but significant lowering of our rates may not be, we may not expect a significant lowering in the near term. But in the midterm, I think, and when I say midterm, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, we can expect a significant lowering of the rates. In the long term, yes, the plan is not to stay here. The plan is really to get us to as competitive a level as possible as our neighbors. Because, by the way, our neighbors who have been subsidizing, they are now thinking of not subsidizing, because it's really not sustainable. So I've been to regulators' conferences, and they've been asking us in the Philippines, how do you regulate an industry that is no longer enjoying a set of subsidies? Because in the next, as we lower our rates, they will be facing increased rates because they will have to take down the subsidies sooner.
Okay, last question, Attorney Dimalanta. Your term, since you were appointed in 2022, will end in 2029.
That's right.
You will then be able to still be in the ERC even after the president changes, we change an administration. If you do find that your suspension was somehow politically motivated, would you consider resigning, or how would you deal with that situation?
Okay. I haven't thought about that. I'm trying to still address this preventive suspension, and even after the preventive suspension is addressed, whether favorably or negatively by the Ombudsman, there's still the case that I still have to deal with. So I haven't really thought about resigning. And to be honest, I have been asked that question. I have been asked a similar question not many months, a few months ago, when we were also faced with certain challenges in the commission, and the thought that crossed my mind is, if I keep on thinking about resigning every time a challenge is thrown my way, baka mga 20 times na po akong nag-resign. So, I think we need to just really be realistic and brace ourselves for challenges, because, as I think I've mentioned this before, we need several reforms to be put in place in the commission. And in putting in place reforms, we will be, in the terms of the millennials, deluding ourselves by thinking that we will make everyone happy. There will be some people that will not be happy, and we just have to accept it and deal with it and make sure that we explain ourselves fully. That's why one of the major things I'm pushing for in the commission is really transparency, because we need to be fair and transparent in everything that we do, and then hope that people will see that what we're trying to do is really to the best interest of everyone.
Thank you so much again for your time here today, ERC Chairperson Attorney Monalisa Dimalanta.
Thank you.
Attorney Monalisa Dimalanta's 6-month preventive suspension does not sit well with business groups. She has ruled out political power play in her suspension by the Ombudsman and would exhaust legal remedies available to her. Until the President replaces her, Attorney Dimalanta's term with the ERC is good until July 10, 2029. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations that would help you form an objective personal opinion. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.